Please stand for the reading of God's Word. Today's scripture is from Numbers chapter 11, verses 10 through 17. And I'll read it for us. Numbers 11, verse 10. Moses heard the people of every family wailing at the entrance to their tents. The Lord became exceedingly angry, and Moses was troubled. He asked the Lord, "Why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you that you put the burden of all of these people on me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? Why do you tell me to carry them in my arms as a nurse carries an infant to the land you promised on oath to their ancestors? Where can I get meat for all these people? They keep wailing to me, 'Give us meat to eat.' I cannot carry all these people by myself. The burden is too heavy for me. If this is how you are going to treat me, please go ahead and kill me. I have found favor in your eyes, and do not let me face my own ruin." The Lord said to Moses, "Bring me 70 of Israel's elders who are known to you as leaders and officials among the people. Have them come to the tent of meeting, that they may stand there with you. I will come down and speak with you there, and I will take some of the power of the Spirit that is on you and put it on them. They will share the burden of the people with you, so that you will not have to carry it alone." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. All right, I guess Pastor Mike.
All right, good afternoon, folks. We're so glad that you would join us for our college service. And I'm so excited to introduce to you that we've decided to, Pastor David, who spoke last week, is being introduced today as your new college pastor. So let's give him a warm OCF welcome as he comes on the stage and delivers the word.
All right, thank you. How's everyone doing? Good. Has all of your schools started? Except UCI, UCR? No, not yet? Let's see. I know it's just the beginning of the semester and beginning of the new year, and I've been praying on what kind of topic to talk about today, and I was asking for God's wisdom. And the topic, or the single word that God has kept giving me, was the word burnout. And I was asking God, like, I'm just about to start a new position. I was already thinking about the term burnout. And I began to pray a lot about it this week, and I figured that's something that some of you might need to hear. So today's topic is going to be on the overcoming burnout in God's way. And as I was thinking about it and praying about it, a lot of things that has happened in my life kind of went through my mind, all the memories from childhood and high school years, college years, and so on. And I have a special heart for college students because that was the most terrifying season of my life and most challenging and difficult season of my life, going through several life and death situations, and that's when my relationship with God became the strongest, as I complained to God the most during that season, and really learned what kind of mistakes I've been making in terms of my mindset and how I was handling my situations and how I was responding to these obstacles. So after going through that, I've gone through a lot of other experiences, such as receiving a lot of support, encouragements, and building a lot of new relationships through this community, especially the college ministry, at the time, the Korean ministry on that side. But yeah, I'm really thankful to be here and be given this opportunity to serve you, and I want to get to know each and every one of you more and more so that I can learn how God is going to lead our relationships and this service and all the things that we're going to do in the future to worship Him and glorify His name, and let you learn what it is like to be loved by God and receive His protection and guidance and everything. So yeah, a lot of prayers are needed, a lot of support are needed, a lot of participations are needed, and we're going to do all of those things together, as I will be relying 100% on God's support, wisdom, and strength. And I hope all of you begin to see how things change as we go through transitions. So I'll be sharing some words, and then I'll also be sharing my testimonies today. So let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this blessed opportunity for us to get together to worship you and praise you and pray to you and listen to your words and to learn about how much you care about us and how much you love us. And I pray that each and every one of us recognize and realize and continue to learn more and more about just how much you love us and how much you care about us, even when we think you do not love us and you have abandoned us. So thank you so much for this blessed opportunity to learn more about your continuous love, and I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so the first question that I have to ask you is the following. What is one thing that tends to drain your energy the most at school or work during the school year, or maybe even right now? If you feel like you're exhausted or feeling burnout, then what is causing it? Is it the amount of workload, or is it some critical feedback or comment from your supervisors, or is it a lot of assignments and tasks that you have to do, or is it, it can be anything, but you know more than anyone and better than anyone what are some of the things that makes you feel burnout, right, or exhausted. And we're talking both physical exhaustion and emotional exhaustion. But when you hear the word burnout and try to apply it to yourself, it is more likely that you might be thinking about emotional burnout or emotional exhaustion. And that's because if we look at the next slide, a lot of different textbooks and dictionaries try to define the term burnout differently because it's used in many different cases. But if you look at the dictionary, then it defines burnout as fatigue, frustration, or apathy resulting from prolonged stress, overwork, or intense activity. And in more literal sense, it's defined as to burn until fuel is exhausted. And how we use the term burnout came out in the 1970s when some researchers, including a lot of psychologists, they began to feel totally exhausted and they were stressed out. They didn't want to go to the work the next day. And these were psychologists who were doing research and also doing clinical work to serve their patients. And they're like, okay, there seems to be no hope because we're applying all these theories, all these different techniques, and nothing seems to be improving these clients, and there seems to be no hope. So what are we doing? What's the point of us doing all these things, because we're not seeing any changes, we're not seeing any improvements, and well, like I really don't want to do this, and my job is miserable, my life is miserable, I'm not happy, and they were going through all these negative cycles, and they gathered together and they actually discussed about their emotional reaction to what they were going through a lot, and they themselves termed what they were going through internally as burnout. So burnout, according to their definition, is becoming exhausted by making excessive demands on energy, strength, or resources. So if we were to look at the signs and symptoms of burnout, then these include exhaustion and alienation of activities and reduced performance. And these three things are considered as the symptoms and signs of burnout because the term burnout in a medical sense was defined to describe what was going on for clients when they were going through workloads. So it was more specifically related to career-related issues. So when you hear the term burnout, and when you try to think about the last time you felt burnout, it's most likely that it's associated with something you've been doing, such as your job, your how you were doing in some certain specific, very challenging classes, in terms of your relationships with the supervisors and so on. And if you let these keep on going without taking care of those, then things become much worse because you begin to feel depression, and that depression goes from mild depression into more severe medically diagnosed depression. And that's going to become pretty severe because you begin to feel lowered self-esteem, and you begin to feel like there's no hope. So you become hopeless, just like some of those initial psychologists. And then you begin to have suicidal tendencies because there's no hope, and you begin to lose the meaning of your work, meaning of your effort, meaning of you waking up another day to go to the work to do things that you don't like and you don't see any improvement. And then you begin to think about, wow, there's no point in living another day, waking up another day. And we see exactly that in Moses. When we go to the next slide, here's Numbers that you just read. And here you see Moses being so exhausted because of the amount of workload. And this isn't the first time, because Moses did get a lot of complaints from his people when he, throughout the entire Exodus and earlier chapters of Numbers, they went through so many miracles. Like they just went through all these miracles. They just had manna coming from the sky, and they saw all these, supernatural miracles to know that God exists, and God is the one who is leading them. And if you look at Moses, no one around this time was communicating with God more directly than anyone else. So here's Moses, who is directly having conversation with God, and knowing that it is God who has the capacity and ability to do anything and make anything possible, because he has seen all the miracles. And he's the one who perfectly understands that God has his own plans, and he had plans in the past, he has plans right now, and he has plans for Moses and his people in the future. And yet, he's overwhelmed. He's like, I can't deal with this anymore. So if you look at verse 11 and 12, he says, why have you brought these troubles on your servant? What have I done to displease you, that you put the burden of all these people on me? So he's asking God, what did I do so wrong? Like, I've been just trying to do what you told me to do, and now here is the burden that I cannot bear with. And if you look at verse 12, his complaint becomes more specific, because it says, did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? So what he's doing is he's beginning to blame God, right? Did I conceive these people? Hey, you are the one who made these people you gave them birth, and then you're the one who brought to me, and you're the one who made me lead these people. And yet these people are putting all the complaints towards me, and I cannot deal with it. And if you look at verse 13, it says, where can I get meat for all these people? They keep wailing at me, give us the meat to eat. So he does have physical issues as well in reality. They are running out of food, they're running out of resources. So he knows the problem, but he also knows that there are so many things that he is unable to do, because everything is not under his control, such as being able to find enough food supply for these people. And finally, after throwing all these complaints towards God, his last words are that I cannot carry all these people by myself. The burden is too heavy for me. So if I were to bring this passage to my clinical students and ask them, hey, what is the present problem for this client? If we were to try to help this client who is going through all these anxiety, stress, and prolonged issues of burnout, then I get some different responses. Oh, like they're running out of resources. Oh, they're complaining too much, and the leadership is, feeling burnout and so on. But one of the most important things that he's mentioning here in verse 14 is that I cannot carry all these people by myself. So Moses is fully aware of the fact that he is overwhelmed because he has limitations, and he's unable to keep up with everything that's given to him all by himself. And the burden is too heavy for him. So in verse 15, what happens after that? Well, we just saw in the previous slides that if you do just continue to let the feeling of burnout as is without taking care of it, then it leads to depression and depressive symptoms, including the low self-esteem. Oh, like I am nothing, I cannot do anything, I am unable to do anything because I'm so limited. And then afterwards, once it gets more severe, you begin to have suicidal ideation. And you see that in verse 15. If this is how you're going to treat me, please go ahead and kill me. So we see both of those signs at the same time. He is becoming hopeless. Well, if this is how you're going to make things or keep things as is, which is already terrible and which is pretty overwhelming, and which I do not have any idea of how to take care of it, then please go ahead and kill me. I cannot do it anymore. I want to die. And this is Moses, who is, again, directly communicating with God. He is the one who experienced more miracles than any of us alive. And yet, he's like, I cannot do this anymore. I want to die. And he continues to say that. So if I have found favor in your eyes, and do not let me face my own ruin. He doesn't want to see his ruin. So he's already having negative projection about the outcomes of this whole circumstances. And if you look at the next verse, chapter 16 and 17, then God's response is very different than what we might think or what we hope to get from God. Because God's response is not, hey, okay, I see that you have a lot of burdens. Let me take care of those burdens. Oh, I see that a lot of people are complaining. I'll take care of those complaints, and I'll just have them stay quiet. Or he's like, okay, I know that you're running out of food supply, which is making these people complain, so let me provide food. He doesn't do that. His response to Moses is, bring yourself 70 elders, and they will share the burden. So if you look at verse 16, bring me 70 of Israel's elders who are known to you as leaders and officials among the people. Have them come to the tent of meeting that they may stand there with you. And I'll come down and speak with you there, and I'll take some of the power of the Spirit that is on you and put it on them. They will share the burden of the people with you so that you will not have to carry it alone. So he doesn't say, I'll take care of your issues. I'll provide you what you need, or hey, don't feel that way because I'll have them stay quiet. But instead, it's like, bring me these people, and you will share the burden, and you'll be working together, and that's my solution. And that's just exactly how things work when it comes to God's kingdom, because God completely has this plan, and Moses completely understands and is aware that God has his plans, but he also knows that he's unable to carry this burden despite his awareness that things have to keep on going. God's plan still has to keep on going. And God is fully aware of Moses' internal struggle, and if you kind of go back to verse 14, Moses is fully aware of exactly what the issue is. I cannot carry all these people by myself. So if you feel like you're being burned out, or if totally exhausted, emotionally exhausted, then you can try to figure out some of the other symptoms. How many people are you contacting these days? How many people do you hang out with these days? Are you beginning to avoid making relationship with other people? Or are you trying to avoid some of these text messages and phone calls? Are you trying to isolate yourself more and more? Well, if that's the case, that is a sign that your body is running out of energy and fuel, that what your brain is trying to do is it's trying to conserve your energy by limiting the resource usage for other functions other than protecting yourself, and therefore it's going to begin to shut down some of the executive functions of your brain that is responsible for emotional regulations, logical reasoning, and use of languages, and sympathy and empathy towards other people, because you're unable to reuse enough energy and resources towards other people and for other functions of your daily experiences. So if those are the signs, then here's God's solution, which is to bring other people to work together with you. Because yes, you are in school, you're at work, you are given these tasks that you cannot stop, and you have to do these things, and you know that you cannot quit, which actually makes you feel even more anxious and nervous and stressed out. And well, you still have to get going. So what do? You have to figure out, how am I going to find enough resources? How am I going to find enough strength? How am I going to feel better about the current situations? And the best solution that God is providing here is to bring 70 elders, bring other people that can share the burden with you. And this is something that was very challenging for me as someone who grew up in through the childhood of complete isolation. So last time I briefly showed you this meme, but I was a complete nerd, like complete nerd. And that was not just because of my personality preference, but it was because of my childhood trauma. So just to introduce myself a little bit briefly, because it's my first official day to serve you as well. I was born in Korea, and my younger brother became one of the most, I have a younger brother who's 3 years younger than me. And he was one of the most famous child actor in Korea in the late 90s. And this is before internet kind of became a popular thing, and no smartphone, no YouTube or anything. So if there's anything famous going on the TV shows, on TV channels, then the viewing rate was about like 40-50%. Basically, like almost entire nation knew about our family by the second year of his acting career. And he was only 4 years old and I was only 7 years old. So I grew up entire elementary school years being fully aware that literally whenever we go outside, everyone in the nation knew about us. And whatever we do, it was on the public media. So we had paparazzis, we had press media always chasing after us, taking photos of everything we do. We go to this restaurant and we eat food, and then that restaurant became popular. And we go to this dental office. So my brother actually went to this one dentist, and that dentist, just because of that one-time visit, became one of the most successful dentistry office in Seoul. So there was so many things going on that I could not handle and I couldn't understand because I was so young. And my mom became very obsessed with my younger brother's success. And as a result, she began to be extremely careful, especially when it comes to press media. So one thing that she wanted to prevent from happening was them figuring out about how she was emotionally abusing me. Because she wanted to kind of brainwash me to make sure that I do not talk with other people in case I release something that might become kind of rumor or something like that. So she wanted to make sure that I stay at home, don't make any friends, do not talk to any other adults, and just stay at home. So I was living like a COVID-style life throughout my entire elementary school years. She actually hired a nanny to make sure that I do not talk to other people. So the nanny was taking care of me, kind of, but also making sure that she was checking on me so that I'm not really talking to anyone and building any relationship. And as a result, throughout my entire elementary school years and junior high years, I wasn't able to make any relationship with other people, and I wasn't able to go through this developmental stage of being equipped with relationship skills, interpersonal skills, and communication skills. So I couldn't really speak to other people. I couldn't really figure out how to express my thoughts and emotions or organize anything. And then it was during my middle school years when my family decided to move to the United States because of my younger brother's education to learn English so that he can do more acting, like for example in Hollywood, for example. So we came here, and by that point, I couldn't speak a single word in English because this was before learning English became like a mandatory requirement in school system in Korea. So this was late 90s and early, like 2000, 2001. So when I came here, well, I initially thought the language barrier was going to cause a lot of issues, but I soon quickly realized that it didn't really matter because I couldn't make any relationships or talk to other people even in my native language anyway. So I was completely isolated throughout my middle school years and high school years, and that was the season when my mom became more extreme and she began to show a lot more mental illness-related symptoms, such as physical aggression and emotional abuse, and all these things that were breaking my family apart and put us into danger. And going through all of these things, just to kind of fast forward, I began to have no hope because initially I was crying every single day. I always had skin issue because I was always crying on the bed. That my eyes, my skin, parts of my skin were always wet, and I had a lot of skin issues as a result. And I don't think there was a single moment during the night time when I wasn't crying every day. And after going through years and years and years of this, I began to realize that, I think this is how my life is supposed to be, and there's no hope. And maybe if this is the case, I need to ask God why this is the case. And then a lot of questions I was asking God was, what did I do so wrong? Why is this happening to me? All I want is just to live like a normal kid, and I can't. And I was trying to go to church more, which was here, but then at the time I didn't have a car, I was still in high school, so the only time I could come to church was when my mom was helping me to come to church, which never happened. So I was able to come to church only when my dad was here, because he was going back and forth between Korea and here. And after I got into sophomore year, I got the car from my dad, and that's how I began to actively come to church and try to just literally live here. So this church has been my home. This place has been my escape room, and this place has been my shelter, and this place has been my heaven. And I wanted to do everything that I can at church, because I was so thankful that this place was helping me get out of my family. And that was my initial intention of serving church. And I was scared of talking to other people and building relationships. So but I still wanted to do something. And as a result, I began to I was playing violin at the time. So I joined the chamber orchestra to serve the chamber orchestra. Later, I joined the praise team. And then as I began to recover through all these relationships and support, and through mentors and small group leaders and fellow friends that I was making here, I was able to quickly recover and learn how to talk to other people and build relationships, the importance of it, and so on. But that wasn't enough for me to become more positive and optimistic about my future, because whenever I went back home, my mom was still being more extreme, and eventually she began to have all this extreme burst of impulsive behaviors, including trying to commit suicide or trying to kill me or my dad during their fights and so on. And I quickly realized that there's nothing I can do about changing this whole family. And as a result, I actually attempted to commit suicide twice, and I thankfully survived. And if I were to just briefly share my second experience, I was trying to crash into the wall near Northwood area where there is a three-way, and there was a 35-mile-per-hour limit area, and I was trying to smash to the wall, driving my car at like 80 or 90 miles. And at that time, I had this sudden perspective of looking at my life from third-person perspective, and I began to feel so bad for this child, this student that I was seeing in a third-person perspective. And I was like, wow, has this kid ever felt happiness before? And the quick answer at that moment was no. And I felt so bad about it that I was like, I cannot let this life go away. And I wanted to stop killing myself, which already started in terms of process. And thankfully, I survived. Only the back of my car hit the wall. I quickly drove to the nearby park and then parked my car in the parking lot. And inside there, I was crying and shouting out loud and complaining to God exactly what Moses is doing here. What did I do so wrong? Why did you bring my mom to my life? And why did I have to be born in this family? Why do I have no one else in my life who can help me or listen to my stories or who I can feel free to talk to? And I was crying for hours and hours, and I still remember it was Saturday, and then I became completely exhausted after crying and shouting out loud. And I was quietly asking God, I know you're there, I know you're with me, I know you're listening to my prayer right now, but I don't see you, and I can't really listen to you. I know you're saying something, but I don't know what you're talking about. All I'm experiencing is all these miserable moments of my life. And I want to hear something, I want to see something physically, So why can't you send me some good people in my life that I can talk to and speak to and learn from, good role models that I can look up to, and someone who can teach me how to live like a normal person. And the next day was Sunday, and when I came here, I saw my wife for the first time in the chamber orchestra, and I met my small group leader who is attending the 11:30 p.m. service and at 11 a.m. service, and they literally showed me what it is like what it feels like to be loved, and what it feels like to receive God's unconditional love, what it feels like to experience God's patience. And I knew I was going to cry, so I'm not that embarrassed. And I'll also eventually talk about the benefits of crying and tear. And it is necessary, and I really encourage you not to hold on to your tears when it comes out. And and those were the things that were going on in my heart these days. And I really, really want to make sure that you, each and every single one of you, to receive that unconditional love and God's patience and God's grace and God's concern and care that He continuously is trying to tell you and let you know, but we're just unable to do so because of our own internal cries and tears and complaints. So if that's the case, then I want you to look at verse 16 and 17 as God's solution to our burnout and emotional exhaustion and everything, which is to bring other people in your life who can share the burden with you. And that was the greatest challenge for me, because at the first time ever for me to share my burden and my story to someone else didn't come until like mid-20s. And that was mainly because I felt like my life has so many of these negative stories and I don't have any positive stories to share, that if I share any of these in my small group, for example, or to my leaders, then they might feel burdened. And also my mom was threatening me, and she was threatening me to kill people that I love as well. So I didn't want to make any relationships just in case anything happened to them. So with all these burdens, I was like, okay, maybe I should just keep everything to myself and hold on to it. So not many people even in this church knew about what was going on until I finally began to break out that barrier and go past that boundary that I have set for myself. And the first time ever that I ever shared about my full story other than my wife was to my mother-in-law, who surprisingly is actually visiting right now today too. And that was the turning point of my life, because the storytelling has such a huge impact in our brain that it just rewires every single neural network out there when you're storytelling. And if you're studying neuroscience or something similar that you probably learned in class, that storytelling and so-called narrative therapy has so much of an impact that nothing else, no other medications or psychotherapy techniques can do. And this is something that can happen easily when you're sharing your burden with other people, because if you want to go through all of this with other people, then you have to share what you're going through, what the presenting problem is, what kind of plans you need to make, and who's going to take which roles, and then you have to work together, communicate with each other, and try to gather together and share your emotions and thoughts and move forward together. And that whole process itself is, in a sense, therapeutic, because in a sense, you're sharing your emotional burden, not just like actual tasks that's going on in school or work. So I want to strongly encourage you to figure out what kind of people, or who are some of these people around you that you're currently sharing your burden with, and be thankful for their presence and their existence in your life. But also, I want you to challenge yourself to think about who are some of those people around you that are openly able to ask you for help or ask you to listen to their stories, because they might be the ones who really need to find people who can share their burden with. So I want to challenge yourself in both ways. Find someone who you can easily share your burden with them, and also find people who you know for sure that they need someone to share their burden with. and I want you to try to be there for them. And that's how we grow, that's how we recover from the burnouts and exhaustions, emotional exhaustions and depressions, not complete isolations, which your brain is deceiving you to think that, hey, this is the best way to do so because we can conserve energy and protect ourselves from all this unnecessary excess release of effort and time and energy and resource. So I want you to close your eyes and try to think about some of the people that you interact with these days. It could be your friends, it could be your family members.